Hey everybody. So today we're not going to have any music. We're just going to be going over the strange phenomenon of backstab registration, which includes phase stabs and fail stabs. These 3 stabs I got in one match in UGC Platinum. And I get each of these stabs by doing the same thing, the same maneuver, which we'll be going over in just a sec. But let's start with that most recent stab. What's really interesting about this is we have a fail stab and then a face stab, or at least that's what they look like. Here it is from my perspective, overhead. This is the client-side perspective. It's what I see from the third person. Watch the crosshair there. It changes type when I click to stab. So that'll tell us exactly when the stab happens, or exactly when I clicked. And listen carefully. We hear the spy say magnificent, which is a kill confirmation voice line. We hear the crit noise for the backstab. But then it just registers as 40 as a shank. So all the client-side confirmations are there. But when we get the damage feedback, it turns out just to be 40 and not a backstab. You'll see here I click while I'm facing him, but in that same tick I managed to rotate about 45 degrees and move so that my backstab axis is behind his. Here's the source TV perspective. Now this is server side, so it's what actually happened. Player model orientation is decided server side, not client side. So what you're seeing is not entirely accurate. It's delayed by ping, and the way they make up for that delay is with lag compensation. So what you're seeing isn't entirely accurate. It's a number of milliseconds off. So here we're seeing the real deal. This is not what you or your opponent sees. This is what's happening on the server itself. And there it is. This highlights how deceptive the models can be. I was 51% across the threshold, just barely more behind him than in front of him. And it doesn't quite look that way. But those are the rules, and that's what happened, and we'll go ahead and confirm that in a second here. So this is where I click, in my perspective. There. Clearly facing his back. The animation plays, and there's a little delay between when I click and when the damage registers. Now here's when the click registers in source TV up there. And this is when the damage registers, and from my perspective. So he's able to turn almost 90 degrees in a single tick. The exact same tick in which I stabbed. See, there's the registration, and he's facing me. From my perspective, clearly a fail stab, but when we look at the source TV, remember this is going tick by tick, and there's 66 ticks per second in this engine. Alright, so here's where I stab in my perspective. See the crosshair change there? And this is one tick. I sidestep, flick my view to the right as I'm clicking, and here's where it registers. He's clearly facing away from me. And here's the confirmation. This absolutely looks like a backstab. A lot can happen in one tick. Players rotate very, very quickly. So, yeah, even though when I clicked, he was facing me, I simply know that a lot can happen in one tick, and I don't bother to wait till I'm rotated to stab. I do it in one motion. Stab, strafe, rotate. This gets me behind him and gets me facing the right way simultaneously. Alright, so here it is from his perspective. Up top we have the source TV server side perspective, and down there we have his perspective. Notice how his is substantially ahead. That's because he's using a higher interp than me. He's using more lag compensation. So up here on the top, we see the server-side damage register. And down here, this is one of the damage registers on his screen. So clearly, from his perspective, this is legit. He managed to turn around in time to stab, and we see here that in the same tick, the damage register is the server-side heavy is already turned about this far, about 40, almost 80 degrees facing this medic. So now he's swerving his view to catch up with me. And here, watch down below. This is his perspective, his client-side perspective. This is the moment at which he dies. Now we're going to have ping and lag compensation come into the picture, and he sees me continuing to be alive. It hasn't registered yet. It hasn't. The information hasn't gotten to his client yet. Up here on top, we see that very moment when I was clearly off of his screen. That's when he actually dies, and that's what it looked like. However, because of lag compensation, he sees the stabs happening a few seconds, or rather, a number of milliseconds after it actually happened, when he's already swung his view back to face me. So it looks completely like a face stab to him, but when we look at the server-side perspective, it looks completely legitimate. I'm obviously out of his FOV when he dies. Alright, so let's watch that in full speed. Fail stab, crazy face stab. So just remember, when things are sped up, they don't look quite right. And things can look really funky, much funkier than that first clip we showed. But in both of these stabs, I'm doing the same thing. I'm clicking, flicking my view to the right, and strafing into them. And lag compensation just makes it look funky. Same thing happening. I know they look incredibly face stabby, even from my perspective, but you have to remember what both of you are seeing is not reality. Hope that helps, and hope to see you guys soon. Have a good one.